60-70% of my job is looking for information and getting answers. And I think as a product manager, that's true whether you're working internally with product development or externally like I am with customers. Most of our work is looking for information and then disseminating it. If we could find a way to remove that, even just 5, 10, 20%, I'm not saying, it's easy to say AI will change the world and everything, but if I could just get the answers to questions more easily, or being able to provide the answers more easily, wow, what a difference that could make. As long as we can make that difference without adding busy work, right?
Ciao, io sono Marco Imperato e questo è il podcast di Product Heroes. Product Heroes è il punto di riferimento in Italia per il product management. Finora abbiamo aiutato oltre 200.000 persone tramite master, formazioni in azienda, guide, articoli e meetup. Lo facciamo anche attraverso questo podcast in cui intervisto product leader che spaccano, che potranno darti tantissimi consigli utili per migliorare il tuo modo di costruire, lanciare e muovere le metriche del tuo prodotto. L'ospite della puntata di oggi è Serge Lachapelle, uno degli eroici speaker della Product Heroes Conference del 2024, di quest'anno. Serge ha lavorato su tanti e diversi prodotti dentro Google, concentrandosi principalmente sulla parte di audio streaming e video streaming, portando poi a sviluppare Google Meet come un prodotto consumer, fino a farlo diventare oggi il prodotto leader per videochiamate per business. Durante il podcast ripercorriamo la sua carriera, dall'ingegneria del software al product management, sottolineando l'importanza di comunicare sempre il valore dei prodotti, che è poi la scelta che ha fatto lui. Ci parlerà delle sfide iniziali viste durante lo sviluppo di Meet, fino agli ultimi aggiornamenti, sottolineando l'importanza dei feedback dei clienti. Vedremo insieme l'impatto che ha avuto questo prodotto in un periodo così delicato come quello della pandemia, che tramite tante e velocissime iterazioni l'ha portato ad essere il prodotto di riferimento per le videochiamate in tutto il mondo tra le aziende, avendo avuto anche la capacità del team di adattarsi velocemente, rispondere alle domande del mercato, ma soprattutto dare la priorità alle giuste funzionalità. È una storia davvero sorprendente, ti consiglio di ascoltarla. Infine Serge ci aiuterà a rispondere a una delle domande più difficili, quella sul ruolo del product management in futuro e di come i tool possono aiutare il product manager oppure ammazzarlo ed eliminare il ruolo definitivamente. Ti consiglio di ascoltare tutto l'episodio per capire come va a finire. Se ci stai ascoltando in formato podcast su Spotify o su qualsiasi altra piattaforma, ti chiedo di lasciarci una review con 5 stelle. Se invece ci stai guardando su YouTube, clicca sul pulsante di iscrizione per rimanere sempre aggiornato sulle nostre ultime uscite. Il tuo supporto potrà aiutarci a raggiungere e impattare ancora più persone e a diffondere la cultura di prodotto in Italia ancora più velocemente, che poi è la nostra missione. Prima di lasciarti la puntata di oggi, ti ricordo che sono rimasti davvero pochissimi biglietti al prezzo early bird per la Product Heroes Conference. Dopodiché il prezzo passerà in full rate. In realtà, quando ci ascolterai, non so ancora se ci saranno biglietti disponibili. Se ancora non la conoscessi, la Product Heroes Conference è l'evento in cui tutti coloro che fanno prodotti digitali in Italia si riuniscono ogni anno. Ormai è una delle più grandi conferenze di prodotto in Europa. Miriamo ad avere tra 1.000 e 1.200 ospiti quest'anno a Milano. Vedrai speaker da Google come Serge, WhatsApp, Microsoft, Roblox, Spotify e tanti altri, oltre a tantissime aziende italiane che spaccano. Per cui, se non hai ancora preso il biglietto, adesso è il momento giusto per farlo. Ora non mi resta che augurarti buon ascolto e ricordarti che dopo i tempi duri vengono sempre i tempi eroici. Ciao Serge, welcome to Product Heroes.
Hi, Marco.
Thanks for being here. I really love to start our conversation because from your LinkedIn profile, I can see you've done pretty much not everything, but a lot of stuff inside Google. You've been working there for 17 years, leading Google Meet, Hangout, RCT.
WebRTC, yeah.
Exactly, specializing in live audio and video streaming. Then, out of nowhere, you jump into Google Workspace, leading like big customers. Boeing, you were telling me, from like 4 people to 250,000 people inside the platform. So crazy journey. And I've seen a few videos about you, recent videos talking about the AI, the future of the world in which we live. So it's going to be super interesting. My first question is, how did you become Serge Lachapelle? So the guy you are right now with this experience, how was your journey? How did you start into product, and why did you decide to choose product management instead of engineering or marketing or other things?
Wow. Well, life is a lot about luck. And I know some people say you make your own luck, but it is very much about luck. I've always had I loved engineering. I loved software engineering. But throughout my career, I felt like, hey, no one can explain the work me and my team are doing very well. And so I started doing that a lot more. And when I was at my startup that I co-founded for video conferencing software in the 90s, I found myself like often representing the work the engineers were doing and talking to investors, talking to customers, because I felt like I could bring a little bit of something genuine to the conversation because I was part of building this. So instead of just being a sales pitch, it became like a conversation of why are we shaping the product in the way we are, what I feel it's being built to do and not to do. And that kind of brought some credibility to the conversation. And I started liking doing that a lot. I don't know how to say it. I think the best thing I can say is I'm super proud that my colleagues allowed me to represent their work. Like, I think that's like, wow, that is better than any title or any LinkedIn description or any video about AI. Like, hey, my colleagues, they're actually okay with me going out and talking about all the hard work they're doing. And I think that's how it all became just a little bit easier to talk than others. And then I just sort of like started to make it happen more and more and more.
This is a very interesting perspective, like being proud of you to represent your colleagues, their great work. And yesterday we were talking with a friend that's going to be at the conference, like
Yes.
you, on stage, is Marcello Maionchi, who's leading product at Arduino, an Italian company.
Oh, yes.
And it was like, after these many years, to me, leading product is more about, having impact than being right. And this is a subtle difference, but huge difference. And I think this is what you are talking about. So trying to
They say
understand.
it's the same thing in a relationship, right? You can be right or you can be happy.
This is especially true with your wife or husband.
So yeah, I think it's about nothing is really right or wrong in life. It's about putting the right things in the right situations to make the right things happen. And yeah, that's very much a definition of my role and my job and my career.
But how did your role evolve during these years? Like starting 17 years ago, doing with live video, audio streaming, then overcoming pandemic with Google Meet is something I would like to talk about. Then to corporate product that is super different from B2C like Google Workspace. So
Okay,
how
well,
changed your role?
I worked on consumer products at first. So Google Gmail video chat was the first thing we launched, and I worked closely with our team in the US, and it was super exciting. I had worked so many years at my startup to get maybe 100,000 users, right, or 200,000 paid users. I don't remember the number. And then, like, in the first 20 minutes of launching a product at Google, you get 500,000 users at once, right? So I thought that was super exciting. But I also saw how hard it was to do video conferencing in the browser. And Google always wanted, for good reason, right? We wanted the browser to be our client, because if you look at Chrome today, it's a safe, it's a great model to build on top of. It's safe, it's secure. So that's why all of our applications runs inside of Chrome. But it was really hard because you needed plugins and you needed to license the audio software for one company. You needed to license video software from another company. You had to put all that together on top of our own network stack. Then you needed to make sure that worked as a plugin with Chrome, Firefox, back then Internet Explorer, and then across all the operating systems. It was a nightmare. And so I decided, okay, well, this needs to be fixed. And we had the opportunity to buy, so I led the acquisition of a big company called Global IP Solutions. And they did audio and video for all the big players back in the day, even Skype. And And so I helped integrate that company into Google, and we launched the WebRTC platform, which is used by almost every kind of video conferencing app or voice calling or video chat app out there today. And so that was really interesting because that went from consumer software to platform, building a platform, getting momentum behind it, getting big players to adopt it and to want to use it. And then I had the opportunity to go back to building software, and we had something called Google Duo back in the day because I was really curious about very fast, very high performing video calls on mobile. Right. And with the goal with Google Duo was to connect calls faster than the phone network. And we achieved this. It was a lot of work, but we were able to achieve, video calls faster than if I take my phone here and give you a call over the normal 4G network. And that was fun. But the real opportunity came when Google Plus was dying down. Hangouts, which we had started in the Stockholm office, was really focused on the consumer market, and we could see that the Workspace business back then was called G Suite or Google Apps. It was really taking off for Google, and a lot of customers were wanting a more enterprise piece of software for video conferencing. So that's how Google Meet started. We just brainstormed. We took the best of the infrastructure we had. We took the best of the knowledge we got from Duo, from Hangouts, from the WebRTC platform, and that's how we built Google Meet. And to do so, to build the software that our customers wanted, I started going around and talking to all the big customers. I worked very closely. I remember back in the day with Roche, the big pharmaceuticals. They were incredible in giving us feedback for the software. I talked to all of our bigger, smaller customers. I went to conferences and I just took notes, listened. And that's how we built Google Meet, was really built on top of listening to all of these customers. And that's basically how I in the end ended up in an outbound product management role. It's because I really liked listening to the customer story, listening how the software is being used, listening what were the pain points, and bringing that voice back to the engineering and product orgs.
Great. It's impressive right now. I mean, I use Google Meet all the time.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome. How fast is moving? Like I think in the last months, I don't know what's happening, but it's like you need that thing. Like you need to move through the presentation when you are sharing the screen.
Yeah.
You need to highlight something.
Yeah.
And it's like magic. Like you have that feature.
Yeah.
It's like it happened. It's very rare to happen. You need to struggle, to think about the feature. Maybe after years, usually it comes. Right now, it's like maybe you can share the screen and then move the presentation. You can highlight things. You can raise your hands without jumping into tons of emoji. Okay, so it's super. It's like they are super tight with customers. It looks like customers are running the product. It's strange.
Well, it is, and it's a big change for Google, right? Google in the early days, in the 2000s, was very introvert. And as Google Cloud and Workspace became real businesses.
What do you mean by introvert?
Introvert in the sense that it was a very secretive, like, oh, we're not allowed to talk what we're working on, and we want to surprise the whole world. And now we've gone from that in the 2000s. I guess we were operating a little bit off the same kind of model that Apple operates on, right? The secrecy model. And as we've developed real businesses with real revenue and so on, first Diane Green and now Thomas Kurian have really instilled a customer first focus on the whole orgs. And so we've had to change the way we do product management. And these changes happen gradually over many, many, many years. And so the channels we have for listening to the customers, they're taken very seriously, right? The big conferences like Google Next, or all the cloud summits we're doing around Europe right now, or the Google Cloud Community Forum that we have, or even when you hit the three dots at the bottom of Google Meet and report a problem, we read all of those. People don't believe me, but we go through this stuff and we listen, and of course, we'll never get the work. This work will never be done. There's always going to be stuff to do. But we try to bucket and synthesize everything so that we have a good feeling of what's the highest priority things. And it's interesting right now, too, because my whole career, the hard part was getting you to see me and hear me properly. And now we're there, right? The WebRTC platform is so strong that we don't have to worry about my voice and my video reaching you as much. And now we can finally go into, how can I make your experience more productive, less painful, right? And that you're seeing the things like annotation tools. You're seeing the things like take notes for me.
Export of the chat, because it usually happened that you were doing something on chat, then you close Google Meet and done. All the links and comments. Now you can get it straight into the notes of the meeting.
Yeah.
All the documents you share. So it's like super customer centric. But I have something to ask you. My curiosity, you were in Google Meet during pandemic.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to hear that story.
So when the pandemic hit, we saw it in the stats weeks ahead, right? We saw that, oh my God.
You're Google. So
the traffic was going up in Asia substantially and in different pockets of the world. And there was a point in time where we declared this as I don't know what the proper word is, an incident, I guess you could say, or a major happening, right? As if there was a big outage or something, right? We had to go into a crisis response mode. We had to build. The engineering leadership was incredible. They built like a round the clock handover system so that we could hand over across continents and have really a 24/7 monitoring of the system. We were able to bring all of Google together for capacity planning on the various links, for capacity planning on the server side, and so on. And so that was just like the best of Google. The kind of rigor that the site reliability engineers brought, that the engineering leadership brought, it was just like, wow, this is engineering at its best. It was quite impressive to see. In fact, like people like those SREs and Mike from engineering and so on should write a book about this one day. The other thing was that meetings such as Google Meet, the average users in a meeting would be 4 or 5 with a conference room, right? And there are a couple of things I'm going to dive into here. That blew up immediately because now all of a sudden 20, 30, 40 people were in a meeting room. And instead of having a UX where you focus on who's speaking, people wanted to see everyone as if they were sitting in the conference room. And so we had to go to work really quickly and optimize for all of this. And so my role became, so I was already in the OPM world, that I was already started to do outbound work back then. So what I did was I had our biggest customers, I had weekly meetings with every one of them.
With all the customers?
So I had about 20, 25 meetings a week sometimes, just listening and helping and making sure we were prioritizing the right things. And I brought this into the product and engineering org, and they did incredible work in getting in getting the grid set up so that you could see. At first we went up to like 30 people and then 50 people and then 100 people, being able to have 500 people, 1,000 people in a meeting, like all this scale up work. And then we started also going after the big meeting annoyances. So we deployed something like the noise removal in Google Meet, which is just incredible, right? It's
It
AI
was a game
based,
changer.
trained on thousands of hours of noise, and there's nothing like it on the market still today. And that one's powered by the cloud, so you don't need to have an NVIDIA 480 card in your machine that's like burning all the electricity in the world. So we started. There were two things, right? It was getting the foundations right for the new use cases that the pandemic had been doing, and then all this innovation that had been cooking over the past years. All of a sudden, the motivation to get it out was so there because you really felt you had a big impact. So all these things like background removal, doing that in a browser without killing your CPU, the noise removal, all these extra features that we were able to get out, captioning, because a lot of people during the pandemic lost their sign language translators and so on. So adding captioning to the system, all these things, it just aligned so beautifully. I think because of the incredible job that SRE and engineering were doing to making sure the service was kept together, the rest of the team got so motivated and started operating on the same drumbeat. And our customers, which were just phenomenal in giving us feedback and encouraging us. And so, yeah, it was huge. And then I know, Marco, you're based in Italy, but the Italian kids, oh my God, they're the ones that forced us to create all the moderator functions in Google Meet. Because at first, Google Meet was a collaborative tool. It was a collaborative tool for teams that need to get work done. But all of a sudden, it was used for education. It was used for all kinds of different realities. And when Italian kids started kicking the teacher out of the conference, or showing things on the videos that they shouldn't be showing, that forced us really quickly to get the moderator tools in place. So yeah, I guess you could call the pandemic super scary, super horrible, but I was in video conferencing when the attacks on 9/11 happened. I was in video conferencing when the swine flu hit, when the SARS virus hit, when the economy of the world melted down in 2008. None of those things. We all thought, now video conferencing is going to take off. Now it's going to happen. Never happened. It took a freaking global pandemic where everyone was forced to be locked at home to change habits. And that's also an amazing lesson, right? The harder the habits you need to change, the harder your job will be at getting your product out. And getting people to sit in front of a screen to have conversations like this is an incredibly hard habit to change. And it took over 20, 25 years for me to see that change to happen.
But Serge, you talked a lot about sitting with your clients, virtually, or listen to your clients. It was like super important, but this could sound a silly question, but how do you listen properly? So how do you remove the noise? Like, I think the product should do this. How do you listen and then talk with engineers about what you're learning? What your advice on that for all the PMs and researchers?
The most important question you can ask when you're talking to a customer is ask why. I want this feature. Why? How? Give me a use case. Who's using it? And then I can use names, right? I can say Jürgen is working with his team. His team is in Switzerland, Germany, Italy, and they're developing a new kind of medicine. and this is how they're using the software, and this is why they're missing things. And that gives a sense of purpose, right? Because now you're not just developing a feature X because big customer Y asked for it. You're doing it for Jürgen, who's working with his colleagues in Italy, and they're working on something that might save lives, right? I mean, I've worked with customers that created that used Google Meet to create new kinds of medicine that have helped people's lives become better. Like, those stories are so important to get back into your organization, because I know that, we live in a capitalistic world. It's all about, making money and so on. But all of that isn't as important as feeling that, oh wow, I've helped this. I had a little part in this, and bringing purpose is super important.
That's it's very like new point of view, because usually when you like listen new for us, okay, because usually when you listen to customer, you try to find the problem, then solve the problem just to save cost, increase profit. While the idea to embed in your vision customer stories,
all the time,
as a tool for you, even to influence people, because you know that as a PM you have to be super great at influencing people.
I think going back to like your first question, like why am I sitting here today? It's because of those stories.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense now. Thank you. You've resolved an existential crisis I had.
Good. And while another question on Google Meet, and then we'll move forward. It looks like Google Meet, it's new to me, even the story of Google Meet, like started as a private tool, Google Duo, then Hangout, and then it became a corporate or company tool,
enterprise
like Google
focused,
Meet. Yeah. And it looks like you have a lot of segment, because you have Roche, you have Italian students, you have product people talking about the new feature. But when everything seems so urgent, like we need to have this now, how do you manage? How do you prioritize? How do you segment? How do you organize the team? Because it was like, yes, we have Hangout. It's something that can be useful to, okay, now video conference is the way in which we will work together. And we talk now.
That's a great question. Well, during the pandemic, one of the most important things I had in all the conversations with customers was please prioritize your asks, right? Please ask, please have a list ready, and let's go why. And it was quite interesting because a lot of the prioritization matched between very different customers. So when it comes time to human communication, I think there's certain buckets that can come together pretty easily. So we could see patterns in there, and when the patterns matched between big customers and small customers, then we could know that, hey, this is what we're going to prioritize on. The other thing is that these teams, they're split into nice formats of expertise, right? So you have a team which is assigned to keeping the call alive, and you don't tell them how, right? You just tell them this is your mission. And they found a great system where, hey, if I'm detecting a lot of packet loss, call my phone. I never told them, nobody tells them this is how you're going to solve it. You give them the overall operational story, keep the call alive, or make my call work from the hotel, and then let them solve it.
I love keeping the call alive, because it's like exactly what we mean.
And then make the call better. Make the call less frustrating, right? And make the call less frustrating. That also, remove echo, remove the noise, those kinds of things. So we acquired a company that built incredible microphones. I'm using one right now. This company is a Swedish company.
Okay.
We've deployed tens of thousands of these around the world. They're the best echo canceling software and hardware I've ever used. And we, and then this team is the same team that went on to do the noise removal in Google Meet. Like everything's kind of like tied together. And you give a team a mission instead of giving a team a problem to solve, it becomes very different, the dynamics.
Yeah, it's totally different. But on this, how do you manage? Because it's a very complicated topic, because you want to be outcome driven. So keeping the call alive, not output driven, like you have to do that to keep the call alive. But at the same time, as a product manager, being on the why and maybe on the what, not on the how, you risk that people go on their way.
Yep.
That maybe don't have anything to do with what you were thinking about. So there is two topics to me. The ego topics that as a product manager we need to remove. The ego there. Maybe I would have done it better. And the second part is the focus. Yes, outcome driven, maybe you have to give them some boundaries, some rules, some, I don't know how, but to limit, their scope.
So in Sweden, we have something called fika. Fika means that twice a day, you're supposed to stop work and everyone goes and have coffee and some pastry together. Usually it's a cinnamon bun. And we've used this a lot in Stockholm from the very early. We had a 1 hour fika, all hands every week. And we would rotate and everyone, we would have the teams come and start demoing and start showing their work for others. And so you never leave a team like on the side for several months and then they come back with this crazy solution, right? Through these kinds of like informal touch points, teams can start becoming accountable to each other. And there's sort of like guardrails that get put in place. And so a lot of people say you have this in the type of stand-up agile processes and so on. I'm a true believer of the more informal touch points as well, such as like the forcing function of having everyone come together, talk about their work, getting input from others, more or less structured hackathons, all these kinds of like moments are quite important, and that's how you build long-term successful teams. Because it's not just about your own personal accomplishment. It's like, how does this fit in the big puzzle?
So it's about trust.
Yeah.
Great. Talking about the way in which we work together, like you mentioned Google Workspace, so actually it's the way in which we work together, and the way in which we will work together in 10 years. What do you see? Do you see something radically different, just improving with AI the way in which we work together?
Here's what I want. I want to be bored a little bit more. Because it's when I'm bored that I become a little bit more creative, that I have better ideas. Right now, everyone's so busy all the time, right? You have a calendar full of meetings, you have chat going off, you have email going off, and I really want, and maybe 60-70% of my job is looking for information and getting answers. And I think as a product manager, that's true whether you're working internally with product development or externally like I am with customers. Most of our work is looking for information and then disseminating it. If we could find a way to remove that, even just 5, 10, 20%, I'm not saying, it's easy to say AI will change the world and everything, but if I could just get the answers to questions more easily, or being able to provide the answers more easily, wow, what a difference that could make. As long as we can make that difference without adding busy work, right? These things, yeah, they made us more productive and so on. They made us so busy and always available as well. Why? Because people are asking questions and they want answers. emails the same, meetings are the same, group chats are the same, right? And so can we find a way of doing innovation without adding a layer of busyness to all of it? Not business, busyness.
Business.
Right?
Yeah. Clear.
and and like that's my, if we get that, then we've succeeded. Because right now, like, I'm just afraid that we're just piling on so that everyone can look busy without getting anything accomplished or getting a real sense of personal accomplishment. So let's focus on making us bored a little bit and slowing ourselves down so that we can provide, get ideas for the true next innovations. And you look at the big leaders, like I haven't, succeeded in this. So I'm talking about my observations here. But if you look at leaders at Microsoft, at Google, they're not running around being busy. They're extremely good at prioritizing. These are people that regularly have time to learn, have time to read, have time to have impactful conversations. And that's because they have a big intent of doing it, right? It's non-negotiable. We should all be like this. We should all have sections of time that are non-negotiable.
Why do you think we confuse being busy with having an impact? Because it looks like the busier I am, the better I'm doing, while obviously is not always the case.
It must be how our brains are wired. They say you get some kind of dopamine by checking off lists on to-do lists and like pressing send on an email, but all we're doing is doing email ping pong. So I get to press send 20 times in a day. Like, I think we see ourselves as incredibly smart beings, but man, we have a lot to learn.
maybe from the machines.
Yes.
From the machines. So
yeah.
The last two questions, Serge. What's been your biggest mistake? So the mistake from which you learned the most and that you remember even now?
I think so in the beginning of my career, I was very quick to jump on new technology and think like, oh my God, this is going to change everything. Like, for example, Java or IP multicast and I think that being the first adopter is not always the best thing because you can hit a wall really hard. I think sometimes, and then you look at Google. Google was not the first search engine. Gmail was not the first email software. Just holding it back, learning a little bit about it, and then doing it right when you go out on the market. I think those are really important lessons. The other thing that as when I became a leader and started leading bigger teams and so on, was to try to compensate for shortcomings inside of the team instead of just letting people do their mistakes, however painful it is. Because it came at a big cost on my mental health, myself, but also people learn from mistakes. And so sometimes it's better to, instead of going in and with a 1,000 cannons and trying to rectify a situation, let the train crash, pick up the pieces, and then the next train will be a lot better. I think those are important lessons. Don't try to be the first all the time. Breathe, take your time, and then sometimes mistakes need to happen. Those are two things I've really learned over the years.
I totally agree on both of them, especially on the second. It's super hard and super painful, especially if you care about your people.
Yeah.
But what I what I found is that once you are able to change the dynamic, once they know that you won't give them the answer, that you won't give them, okay, we need to do that. They need that from you. They will have context, maybe identifying risk, maybe P&L if it's needed. Then the first months are like hell. But then they then they have two options. You need to make them leave the company because they are not able to reason by themselves. But on the second option, they start to, take responsibility, accountability, decide, challenging. They start to understand that they don't have to say yes to you. It's the last thing you want. Yes.
Yep. Those are important things, and I'm sure I'll think of more of these. I've done so many mistakes in my life, Marco. I've broken so many things. Like I'll have a ton to talk about at the conference. I'm going to start thinking about it now.
Great. We're waiting for it. So the last question is, if I am like a young PM, I want to start my path, my career, what are the advice for me? Like what I should do, what I should learn first?
Many organizations tend to say, okay, this is product, this is engineering, this is, project management, this is UX. But the truth of the matter is the PM needs to be incredibly close allies with all of these functions. A PM cannot operate in the void. So make sure that you build allyship or real strong relationships with all those functions, and always never say that you're the CEO of the project. I've heard this so many times. You're not the CEO of the project. You're an important part of the engine, but you're not the whole thing. Remember that. Act with humility. Make sure that you listen, ask why, make sure people are part of decisions, and make sure that if some people don't agree, you need to agree to disagree and move on. Those are so important things. And it's hard coming out of academia, because you don't learn these skills in academia. You only learn those skills by looking around and doing. Get a strong mentor. Get someone that you respect. That's someone that has, that matches your ethos, that you feel you can open up with. Get a mentor very early on. And yeah, those would be the best advice. Turn the ego down. Get a mentor.
Okay, Serge. Thank you very much. I'm just counting the hours to meet you in Milan in October for the conference.
It'll be great.
So, see you there then.
See you there.
Ciao.
Bye bye, Marco.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grazie per aver ascoltato questo episodio di Product Heroes. Se l'hai trovato utile, iscriviti su YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, insomma, dove ascolti i tuoi podcast normalmente, così non ti perderai neanche un episodio. Prima di andare via, vota con 5 stelline questo podcast o scrivi un commento, una recensione. Questo ci aiuterà a raggiungere sempre più persone e quindi aumentare la diffusione della cultura di prodotto in Italia, che poi è la nostra mission finale. Quindi il podcast è soltanto uno dei tanti modi che Product Heroes utilizza per spingere la cultura di prodotti. Trovi maggiori informazioni e tutte le attività che svolgiamo su productheroes.it. Ciao e alla prossima!